Hi, this is Derek with TradingANIMal for your weekly summary for February 2nd, 2018. We finally received that pullback that we've been waiting on this week. As you can see on my screen, I've got the Dow futures. It's a fairly significant drop. You see it did close below the 34 EMA. But if we look at that drop, it basically totaled 729 points down on the day. Compare that to October 1987, the big crash. The Dow dropped 508 points. But as you put that into perspective, that 729 point drop today is only 2.7%, whereas that 508 point drop in October 1987 equaled 22.6%. So when you put in that perspective, yeah, we got a fairly good sized drop, but in the big picture, it is just a normal, healthy market pullback so far. So we look at the ES futures. Similar drop. It actually did close below the 34 EMA, and it's not closed below the 34 EMA since all the way back in October of 2017, or August, sorry, of 2017. So we've been basically above that 34 EMA from a closing standpoint since then. So so definitely a large drop, definitely a pullback that we've kind of been waiting on. So anyway, here's the NASDAQ. Similar pullback. It actually is still above its 34 EMA, but definitely below, well below the 21 EMA at this point. All the moving averages are still stacked, of course, because we've been in an uptrend for quite some time, but it is pulling back for sure. Something interesting, if we look at the overall market, one thing that I've been watching that's I think is very interesting. If we go to the SPX cash, we look at the month and we run our Fib levels, Fibonacci retracement levels, you can see from this prior pullback, we've got a 100% retracement, almost exactly at the high before we started pulling back last week. So it's pretty interesting. It definitely hit that resistance, and so far it is pulling back. So if we take the 100% retracements for support, it potentially, this is a monthly, but it potentially could fall down to that 2548 to 2577 level that I've got there from the previous pullback. So we definitely have some room to pull back additionally than what we've seen so far, if in fact this is a more important high. But if you look at it on a monthly, it definitely tagged that 100% retracement or projection line almost perfectly. So so that's interesting. That's one thing that I've been looking at and been watching for a while, and it tagged it nearly perfectly. So again, something else, if we look at the bonds, there's people out there who think the bonds don't affect the stock market. I think the bonds absolutely do affect the stock market. So if you look at the bonds lately on a daily, the bonds the moving averages are completely stacked from a bearish standpoint. It's underneath all of those moving averages, the 8, the 21, the 34, the 55, and the 89. When the bonds are in a downturn or in a downward channel like that, it's very difficult for the stock market to continue going up. So this was definitely expected. The bonds are actually what preceded that crash in 1987. Not saying that that's what's going to happen now, but the bonds are important to the stock market, so it's something that needs to be watched for sure. As far as what we're going to see next week, one thing that I found interesting is if you look at the VIX on a 5-minute chart, so the volatility index on a 5-minute chart, you can see at the end of the day it actually dropped. The volatility actually dropped into the end of the day, so it actually reached its high about 210, so prior to the end of the trading session. Whereas if you look at on a 5-minute chart, they actually closed pretty much at the low, end of day low. So at that 410 period of time, the VIX actually started dropping, and the ES started dropping also. So, but because that VIX started dropping, it does bode well that we may see a bounce next week, because that VIX was not at the high of the day at the same time the futures were at the low of the day. So we'll have to wait and see how we open up on Monday, but that is something interesting that we were watching. So again, hope you enjoyed this video, and we will be back with another weekly summary video for our free subscribers next week. Thanks, and have a great week of trading.